Hello, everyone. I'm Ruth Mortimer. I am the Global President of Advertising Week. You're probably thinking to yourself, is she a college athlete? I don't know. Looks like a few too many years on her. But let's let that go, not ask too deeply, because the guy we're going to talk about is right here. So Chad Easterling is the CEO of Obsidianworks, which is a culture-powered marketing agency, which you co-founded with your business partner, Michael B. Jordan. And previous to that, you spent a virtual lifetime at Nike,
more or less,
working across several categories and territories, including the Nike and Jordan brands. So you probably know quite a lot about
just
sport.
a little bit.
A little bit. Okay, cool. But here we are today to talk about something which is a really important initiative you've been working on for quite a few years, which is the Legacy Classic.
Mm-hmm.
Launched 2021. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Legacy Classic is a HBCU basketball invitational, which we started in 2021, and the whole purpose around it was to give a platform for HBCUs and have that platform be similar to the ones that PWIs play in. I guess the other backstory to my background is I also went to Hampton University, and I played basketball at Hampton University as well. So, it touched on a lot of different things for us.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have never known from your height that you'd ever touched a basketball, but, So tell us a little bit about what's the ethos of Legacy Classic? What makes it different from everything else?
Yeah, so for us, the things that make Legacy Classic different are, one, the location for us, right? So we were really intentional on identifying a location that, one, was unique and personal for us. By us, I mean MBJ and I. So the game takes place in Newark, New Jersey. Then another piece for us was it wasn't just about the game. It wasn't just about what's happening on court. It was also about the entire HBCU experience. And so we were really looking at, one, how are we incorporating the things that make HBCU life special and unique? And then we were also thinking about how are we creating an equitable space for those students, right? Because we weren't just trying to focus on the kids on the court. We were thinking about the current students who are there and what are the programs that we're building so that they can, experience the different industries and sectors that are, beginning to be at the forefront of the world, whether it be gaming or technology or venture or whatever the case may be. And then also figuring out ways to connect with the alumni and bring them back into the fold to close that gap and making sure that that they too are able to give back and be a part of the entire property.
I like the way we're now passing the mic. It's a bit like a club, but a bit more daytime. So tell us a bit. We're all brand people here. What about the name? Because going from 2021, why Legacy Classic?
Let's see. Okay, I'm back. I'm active.
Okay.
All right. So we really chose the name Legacy Classic, honestly, for exactly, for that very part of legacy, right? One part of it, a lot of HBCUs, we always talk about legacy in regards of, it could be that, your family went there, the legacy, the tradition of those universities and what they have instilled in us. And then the other part of it was also wanting to create a legacy that lives beyond us. And wanting to make sure that it had that type of reach and impact. I guess the other piece worth mentioning as to, why we chose, why we looked at Newark and partnered with Prudential was MBJ and I are both from Newark, New Jersey, right? So as we talk about legacy, there were many layers to what that name meant and signified for how we approached it.
And I guess, obviously you have a history with basketball, but why basketball particularly?
So basketball for HBCUs, it is the, all right, I'm going to give a little sports breakdown from a collegiate standpoint. So the football teams and HBCUs, they play inside a championship, league, division, which is not the bowl series. And so because they're not in a bowl series, the way that the money breaks down for HBCUs, it'll never meet what you're doing if you're in a power conference. Yeah. And so basketball is, as long as you're in Division I, it's an equal playing field. That's why you have, a 16 seed beating a 1 seed or a 15 beating a 2 seed and things of that nature. And so we chose basketball because we knew that, that was a platform that men and women both play at, where you're going to play, we've played Duke in NCAA tournament. We played these bigger schools. And so we knew that a basketball property and creating that and getting it televised would be at the same level as another, Power Five, or I don't know, with the conference realignment, I don't know if it's 5 or 6 or 4 anymore, but, we knew it would be at the same level.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's a great leveler. And one thing I'd love to understand is, tell me a little bit more about the alignment here with Michael B. Jordan. I know him as an actor.
Yeah.
Very handsome man, but I don't necessarily know about why he's associated with the Legacy Classic.
Yeah, so for him, I guess one part of it is, his relationship to people who went to HBCUs. His brother went to HBCU, I went to an HBCU. He has a lot of friends who went to, HBCUs, and so whether he's going to visit it, or attending homecomings, he had a connection there. Another piece of it was also wanting to identify and figure out ways to give back to home, right? And so being connected to Newark and giving back in that way also mattered. And then the other piece was, as we were growing up, there was this other really, really big football classic, because HBCUs are really known for their football classics, because of all that happens and the energy and excitement around that experience. There was a really big one that used to take place at the Giant Stadium. I guess at the time it was called MetLife, or I can't remember at the moment. But it was called the Whitney Young Classic, and that was just like one of the biggest moments in the fall. And so it was also like, how can we recreate that feeling that we had when we used to go to that game as kids?
And I think one of the other things I wanted to know was about the HBCU angle. So you mentioned it's really important to level the playing field, but tell me about, there's actually a lot of HBCU kind of initiatives out there. How does it showcase what's unique about itself?
For sure. So for us, we know there's 104 HBCUs, and so we really wanted to figure out how are we storytelling around it. So using Legacy Classic allowed us to not just focus on that weekend of the game, but also extend it out to, add programming either months ahead or even weeks ahead. And so what it did was we were able to, introduce gaming, right? We know how big gaming has become across the world, right? And so we were starting esport gaming competitions. And a lot of the universities at the time, they were starting up gaming departments. They were starting up, their tournaments. We started up a startup competition because, again, we wanted to make sure that we were, creating a space for these students to, excel at life past whatever they were doing at the university. And so for us, the thing that we were looking at from a separation standpoint, or was making us unique, was how are we taking all the different worlds that exist outside of the HBCUs that other larger institutions might have access to, and creating that for them. So for us, it was a matter of just bridging that gap and creating those opportunities for them to either, it could even be like we did a brunch where you were able to connect with established individuals inside of the industries, right? Just more so, how are we just creating that one-to-one experience so they can feel like they are getting ahead, and we're setting them up for success.
Okay, so basketball is the heart, but then life really, being set up for life is the plan. So tell me a little bit about how you pick the sectors that you put around the basketball. What is it that makes you think this is one that's right for Legacy Classic?
So I would say there's two parts. One part is we look at what's going on in the world, right? And what the conversations are about, or even like what kids are interested in. And another part is, as we're talking to brands, it's also looking at what are they interested in? What are their objectives? What are they trying to get across? And then how can we find alignment, right? So there's packaging that we already have set up in place, and then there's also a world we create something bespoke based on the brand and what they're trying to do.
Okay, and do you find, what kind of activities do you find appeal most to the student audience? Because they're young.
Yeah.
And they probably judge us because we're old.
I mean, yeah, they judge you. They ain't judging me. That's
fair. I'll
don't
take
generalize it.
I'll take
Don't generalize it. Wait,
I don't know.
I would like to
spoke to your
think I'm
son.
still cool. I would like to think yeah, my son would for sure disagree. I'm not. But we have conversations with them, right? So we have an ambassador program where we're talking to them to figure out like what's of interest to them. We have some of them intern to find out and get the insights and nuances of what matters most, right? Oftentimes it could be music, or it could be the things that really drive culture for them, right? Music, it could be gaming. Honestly, it could be startups in the VC space, because at the end of the day, a lot of them, what drives them is money, right? And so they're trying to figure out, how can I get to where all these other people have gotten. We also partner with Thurgood Marshall College Fund, because another piece of this is how are we giving back and creating, again, a legacy to where more kids get to come through the program, right? I mean, get to go to HBCUs and experience HBCUs. So that's another big element of it for us. So for us, it's not so much that like we're setting out and saying like, oh, these are the sectors we're going to focus on. For us, we're really having conversations and listening to, the HBCUs and the students to figure out like what are they focused on, as well as talking to the brands to figure out what are they trying to really get across.
That makes sense. And then with the brands, I think one of the big topics we hear about here at Advertising Week a lot is how you show up authentically and deliver an experience people want that doesn't just feel like promotion.
Yeah.
How do you work with the brands to make that happen?
So that's a big one for us, because, we really want to make sure that it is authentic and important. Oftentimes to the brands that we're talking to, we're trying to figure out what are some of the pain points that, not even just HBCUs, but our communities face, right? So we've partnered with financial institutions where we're talking about, how are you getting better with your finances? How are you managing your finances, right? Especially as we talk about NIL and these students really get into that space of doing deals and, having to figure out tax and stuff. So we have that conversation with them. We're having conversations with different brands around, how are we showing up from an assortment standpoint, from a merchandising standpoint, because some of them are into fashion. So for us, authenticity for us really plays a part in just making sure that it's something that the kids actually care about, and it's something the kids actually, talk about as a pain point, whether it is, finances, whether it is how to understand merch, whether it is nutrition, whether it is like getting and understanding and access to games, and also figuring out what brands are already talking to all these communities, right? Because there are worlds where there are brands who just want to jump into a conversation because it's a timely conversation. And then there are other brands who have been having conversations with these communities for a really long time, and they see Legacy Classic and this opportunity as a way to further expand on what they're already talking about.
I mean, to be honest, I feel I could use tax advice, so I might just come and hang out on the sidelines next time. But tell me, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Tell me, how do you see the Legacy Classic going on from here? Yeah,
so, I mean, that's one of the things we're talking about right now, is really figuring out, like, what does the future of the Classic look like, and how do we continue to expand on it? And honestly, the thing that we really look at and speak about is how the opportunities are endless, right? It could be scenarios where we're looking at additional markets, and we know that we wanted to go to Newark because we knew that it was a community that doesn't get a chance to be exposed to HBCUs often, right? And so now that we've done that, now we're talking, what do other markets look like? As we talk, especially if we think about media partners and how that all plays a role too. The other piece of that is, how do we expand on the teams, right? And what does it look like to even expand on teams? A personal thing for me is I really want to explore how do we include some girls' games in there, right? Because it's not just about, the boys' competition, but how are we creating an additional set of games for the women's teams to showcase, their skills and their greatness in a similar platform. So, because the convos are ongoing, there's nothing set in stone, but we really see it as, we see the opportunities as being endless.
Yeah, I completely agree. And tell me, I always like to ask people this, what's the one big lesson you've learned from your experience with the Legacy Classic that you need to tell these guys?
the one big lesson that I would say is like the biggest lesson is really like when you are entering new spaces with new audiences, it is paramount to really understand what matters most to them, what's important to them, and what those nuances are. And from there, I think they will accept you with open arms as well.
Perfect. Well, Chad, I think they accepted you with open arms. They were smiling. They gave us a couple of laughs.
It's a couple.
You can't ask for better than that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.